Hi everyone, let's continue our discussion about the Python list. And here are some very common, very useful operations you want to do with list. Okay, so the first one, len. We have seen this before, right? So what does the len mean? Where did we see the len? Well, len, and then if we put a string inside, and then we get the length of the string, right? Well, and in Python list, we can do the same thing. So in the len parentheses, if we put a list inside, and then we can get the length of the list. Well, but here's something you want to remember. See this one. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, and then a nested sublist as 4 and 5, right? So from the top level, seeing the whole list, how many items do you see? You see 1, 2, 3, 3 items. But the last one, 4 and 5, they are in a sublist, so it is considered to be one sublist. So from the top level looking down, you see 4 items. The first 3, they are integers, and the last one, that is a nested sublist. So the length for this one should be 4, okay? And then the next one, plus. Well, we see plus several times, right? If we do integer plus integer or float plus integer, and that is just a mathematical plus. And how about string plus another string? String plus another string is a string concatenation, right? And then for the list, we can also use the plus to do list concatenations. Well, that's simply to concatenate two lists together. Okay, so say if you have the 1, 2, 3 as one list and then ABC as another list, if you want to concatenate those two together, and that is a list plus another list. Okay, and the next, well, this is also an operation we have seen before. That is to repeat. And remember, we have been doing this a lot. And like say, if we have a string, say my str equals say this, and then if I want to repeat my str for 9 times, for example, and then what do we have? And we just have a long line of the equals, right? Well, now let me do something similar, like my list equals 1, 9, 5, and then I want to do print my list and then repeat 3 times, and then I'm gonna repeat this list for 3 times. So by repeating a string, I'm gonna get a longer string repeated. And similarly, if I want to repeat a list, and then I'm gonna repeat the content of the list, so I end up with a longer list. Okay, let's move on. The next part, in operator. We have seen the in operator, right? In strings. So if we have a string and we want to check whether that is a string, a substring of another one, and then we want to use the in operator. And for example, if we want to do print, say on, I want to see if on in a string Python. And then if I print that, and it should give me a true, right? So I'm checking whether on is a substring of the string Python. Or if you want to do one, and if I will run this again, and it will give me a false because one is not a substring of Python. Okay, so those are all the operations that we have seen before, but they are also useful on Python list. Okay, so let's see a couple of the exercises. So the first one, if we want to print the length of this list, what are we gonna get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We count a total of 5 items. 3, 67, cat, 3.14, false. So a total of 5 items. So we are going to have a 5. Okay, how about this one? If we want to get the length of this super complicated list, and then what are we going to have? So you remember for the list, when we get the length, we count the items, the number of the items from the top level. And by saying the top level, I mean if there is a sublist, it doesn't matter how many items are there in the sublist, we count as a 1, right? So 1, 2, 3, and then sublist as 4, another sublist as 5, and then 6, 7. So it should be 7. Okay, and here is another interesting thing. So you see this one, this is a sublist with 3 items. And how about this one? This is also a sublist, but this list is actually empty. And you may say, can we do that? Okay, let's try. Say, if I want to do my list equals a empty list, okay? A empty pair of the bracket and nothing inside. And if I want to do a print my list, and then what am I gonna get? Okay, so I created my list as an empty list, nothing inside, and when I'm printing that, and I got that. So Python is using the square brackets as notation to show that data type is a list. However, there's nothing inside, right? Okay, and how about this one? Okay, I want to get a list square bracket 2 dot upper. Okay, so can we really do that? Are we gonna have an arrow? If there's no arrow, are we gonna get some output? So think about that. Okay, and remember the first thing about this question is if we are using the square bracket with a index as 2, what are we visiting? We are visiting the item on the index 2. And when we are using indexes and then we count from 0, so 3 is index 0, 67 is index 1, and then cat is index 2, right? So when we are doing a list square bracket 2, what do we get? We get the string cat. And then if we do a string cat dot upper, what are we gonna get? We are gonna get cat, all uppercases. And remember, we talk about this method or this function when we first talk about the functions, right? Okay, and how about this one? So we created a list called a list, and then 1, 3, 5, and if we want to do multiply by 3, okay, we just did that, right? And then what are we gonna get? We should get C, because we are repeating all the elements on this list for 3 times. So C, that is 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. So repeat for 3 times. Okay, and here's one more thing. And do you remember the negative list? And let's go back to the strings again. Say if we have a string called, okay, and I'm creating another string called, okay, let's learn list. Okay, and then if we want to print the last character, how do we do that? So we can do my string, and then if I do a index -1, and then that index -1 says I want to access the last item or the last character in the string, right? So if we want to run this, we should get this S. So let's run this. Okay, we get this. That's correct. So let me use this list again. So I'm using my list, and then this time I want to print the last item of my list. So my list square bracket -1. Okay, so I'm using the -1 now to access the last item on the list. So what am I gonna get? So I should get a 5. So That's reasonable because that is the last item on the right side. So now I do want to make it even harder. Okay, so I want to add one more thing. So that is 99 and then nested. Okay, so now this is hard, right? I have a list and the first three items are 195. They are all integers. However, the last item, what is that? That is a sublist, right? And then if I'm still keeping this line of code, I want to print the last item in this list. What am I gonna get? I'm gonna get the sub list. Why? Because this sublist, if we are counting from the top level, that is exactly the last item in my list. So when I'm using the negative 1 to access the last item, it doesn't really matter what data type it is. I'm grabbing the last item from the top level. And for this nested list, the last item from the top level is exactly the highlighted sublist. So I'm getting 99 and nested as a list. Okay? So this is the trick about the negative indexes. So when we are doing the 0 and positive indexes, we are counting from the left hand side. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And if we are doing the negative indexes, we are counting from the negative 1 and we are counting from the right side. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Okay, so that is the trick of using the negative indexes. And I'm going to pause the video from here and I will see you in the next video.